Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Ok Xoomer. I'm your host, Aaron Lichtig, Xometry guy and former Jeopardy champion, and I'm here today with Mo Islam, the founder of Payload Space. Welcome, Mo. It's great to have you.
Thanks, Aaron. And I had no idea you were a former Jeopardy champion. You left that out.
Oh yeah, no, it's yeah, from 2019, I was on Jeopardy and was fortunate enough to win again.
That's amazing.
Cool. So first of all, what is Payload Space?
Sure. And thank you again for having me and having Payload on. But just to give you a quick high level, so Payload is a digital media company covering the business and policy of space. So our first product was a weekly newsletter, which me and my co-founder Ari Lewis started as a side project about a year ago. And we created it to really help fill a gap in the industry with regards to news readership and distribution. So effectively how news was being delivered to the audience. And our belief is that newsletters are the new homepage, and also media coverage in general. So we felt like there wasn't enough focus on the startup industry that's driving a lot of the growth and innovation in space. And we decided to create a media company to address those kind of issues. And the traction on the first product that we had released, which is just a weekly newsletter, was a lot better than we expected. We were getting pretty high profile signups from senior agency officials, both on the government side, on military, both military and civil, and also public company CEOs, which for us was like an early sign of product market fit. So we decided then to let's go out and formally fundraise and fundraise for the company and start scaling the business model. So here we are. It's been a year, and we're very excited on what the future of kind of space media and the space economy is going to look like for the next 5 to 10 years.
I love that newsletters are the new homepage.
Yes, it's when you really think about, I mean, part of the reason why we were so excited about getting started on this is we saw this new media model that was being utilized very successfully in other industries and other verticals. Business, of course, just general business news. You may be familiar with Morning Brew, which is very popular here in the US, a couple million readers. And they've effectively become like the Wall Street Journal for the millennial, right? And Axios is another easy example. This is a company that's built a multi-$100 million media business based on the fact that they send emails to your inbox, and that's how you read most of their coverage. So for us, we were just kind of scratching our head, asking ourselves, why is this not as prevalent in space? Space is one of the most exciting industries. It's growing very quickly. There's a lot of venture capital, private capital, and public market liquidity that we're starting to see, and just general capital market activity. Everything pointing to the fact that this is going to be much, much bigger than it is today. And we just did not think that the innovation that we were seeing, the media innovation that we were seeing in other industries had reached space yet. So we felt compelled to go after the opportunity.
What kind of background did you have leading up to founding Payload?
Yeah, so I have a little bit of a non-traditional background, from the sense that I don't come from a traditional space background. I actually spent most of my career on Wall Street. I was at JP Morgan for about 7 years, then Deutsche Bank for 2 years. And I held roles both across public and private markets, but spent a great deal of my career raising and investing capital in technology businesses. And I focused primarily on deep tech. So basically businesses where there's a fundamental science and engineering risk to getting the actual product or service to work. And I worked on a variety of different verticals, but space was one of my main coverage areas. I spent a lot of time conducting, writing research, and dissecting business models. And it kind of was the reason why I ended up wanting to start Payload, because from my experience on the research side of things, one of my frustrations was that I wasn't able to find a lot of great news coverage on new space. I think none of the banks were covering the industry from a research perspective. And on the media side, I think there was a lot of great media outlets out there that was covering traditional aerospace and defense and doing it really, really well. But I know that there were startups, really exciting startups that are now much, much bigger, sort of in the billion plus range, that were just not being covered as much at the time. So I'd kind of seen it firsthand, which compelled me to go down this road.
What are some of the startups or business models that excite you most about the future of space?
That's a very good question. So Well, I think imaging data, satellite imaging data, is probably one of the most underutilized digital asset in history. And I know that's a very strong statement to make, but you're starting. I mean, even sort of what's happening right now in the Russia-Ukraine conflict, which is a huge tragedy for a lot of different reasons. But you are starting to see the value that Earth observation companies can offer to both military and media, from the perspective of troop movement and general, I think, high quality kind of information related to what's happening on the ground. So that is starting to create a lot of, I think, focus on what's happening in EO. I think space infrastructure is really exciting, specifically what's happening on the space station side, on commercial space station development. Mm-hmm. Part of that is because the NASA came out recently and said the ISS was going to be decommissioned by 2031, and we do need a presence in low Earth orbit for a lot of different reasons, including research, science, manufacturing, and I think there's a whole host of new use cases that we haven't even gone down before. But again, back to this recent conflict, I mean, NASA and Roscosmos, which is the Russian space agency, is having a lot of, there's a bit of conflict right there. And historically, they've always avoided a lot of the military conflict and didn't allow it to get into the civilian side of things, but it's now seeping its way into the civilian side of things. And there are comments being made about the ISS and the future of the ISS. And it just points to the idea, and my own belief, that there needs to be a independent private space station. And I think you're going to see a lot more news coverage around that. I mean, you're already seeing a lot of it, but there's a lot of great companies out there trying to do this and build this.
Yeah, it's
that's just two.
Yeah, tremendously exciting space, and they're the applications, everything from asteroid mining to other forms of manufacturing in space to traveling to Mars and elsewhere, are just fascinating.
Right, and I would just say one more thing, because I think we can talk about exciting opportunities in space probably for an hour at least. But on the manufacturing side, just to hone in on that, I think what's happened with our industrial base and our supply chain inefficiencies and weaknesses is certainly a point that needs to be addressed. And I know Xometry is working on that and is a crucial part of kind of fixing that. But that is a very, very real problem, right, that we have here in the U.S. It has significant national security implications, especially when we have these inherent supply chain issues in the way that things have been constructed over the last, call it 20, 30, 40 years. So that to me is also another exciting opportunity to kind of pay close attention to, because it is something that does need to get better.
Definitely. Now, if somebody is interested in space and wants to sign up for the Payload newsletter, what should they do right now?
Sure. Well, the easiest way is just to go right onto our website, www.payloadspace.com. And you can read our articles, you can check out our newsletter, you can sign up for it there. And then, of course, you can always reach out to us directly at general@payloadspace.com if you guys have any questions or comments or critiques about the way we're doing things or our newsletter. We're always open to having a conversation, and we love feedback.
Awesome. And it is a great newsletter. I signed up for it a couple of weeks ago and have been reading it ever since, and have learned an awful lot about not just the manufacturing engineering side of space, but also the business side of space and how all of that is evolving.
Great.
Awesome.
Well, thank you, Aaron.
Yeah, Mo, thank you for joining today. It's been great talking to you. And thanks again for watching, everybody. We will be back again in another few days with yet another episode of OK Xoomer. Stay healthy, everybody.
Bye.